covered, and the second thing is that auditor now has to be more proactive. They have to be proactive in their approach towards detecting the fraud or material misstatement. So whether it's a misappropriation or a fraudulent reporting. So auditor is responsible for maintaining an attitude of professional skepticism throughout the audit. He will have to maintain this. He will have to understand. You see the overriding, what is the overriding requirement of ISA 240? Okay, now you have to start the audit keeping in view. I am not saying that we become a bloodhound and we are after it. No. But we need to understand, we need to know that the financial statement could be materially misstated due to the fraud. This is what is the overriding requirement of ISA 240. Keeping in view all this, now we have completely revised that, the responsibility that we have already covered, whatever we have discussed now, and then we have provided you with fraud risk assessment document. This manual provides you fraud risk assessment document, how to assess, okay, the fraud risk. You know, fraud risk is a significant risk. It's a significant audit risk. Okay, chapter 8 is general purpose CIS checklist. This was quite lengthy. We made it, try to make it more simpler, keeping in view the requirement of SMPs. SMPs normally don't have to deal with the, large organization audit, but that does not mean that you cannot do it. I mean, if you want to do it, you can extend, as I said, that these are the formats. You can always tailor them to according to your requirement. Chapter 9 is analytical procedures, analytical performed as risk assessment procedures. Now this chapter provides a very useful guide. It contains of all, I was discussing with Shai Sahab, that normally what do? We simply compare two figures and keep the difference. No reasons why there is a fluctuation, how the fluctuations were dealt with. So this provides quite a detailed guidance and quite a detailed formulas, different types of analytical procedures in chapter 9. Chapter 10, internal audit, that one is a preliminary evaluation of the function itself, and the second portion covers the individual evaluation of the different procedures performed by the internal auditor. First one is an overall evaluation. As you all know what is the status in the organization, whether his reports are being relied on, what type of work he is doing. Okay, that is a general evaluation, and then evaluation of his work that was being conducted. For example, we normally when we go, we retest certain of the procedures that were performed by the internal audit, and accordingly we can utilize. This is because internal audit is also a component of internal controls. Chapter 1, group audit. Now this was posing a lot of problem for us because the previous ISA was using the work of another auditor, and then now this ISA has been changed to group audit using the work of component and other auditors. So basically, technically, whatever the requirements are there, you can always apply when you are using the work of another auditor. But since the ISRs have changed, we did not think it appropriate to continue with the ISR, which is now no more there. But the other part of it, that we did not deal this situation exhaustively, because I think, to my understanding, correct me if I am wrong, my other fellows, that this ISA has not been adopted by ICAP, right? ISA on group audit. But anyways, चले एक मिसाल हम ये समझ लें कि अगर कोई भी स्टैंडर्ड ना होता और आपको ऑडिट दिया होता तो आप किसी बेसिस पर ऑडिट तो करते हैं ना, ओके? So if you have a group audit, if you are engaged as a parent auditor and auditor of a group, what would you do under these circumstances? You have to do certain minimum things. So those we have covered. Obtaining an understanding of the group, entire group, understanding of the component auditors, communicating the group instructions to component auditors, other considerations and reporting considerations. So these are the minimum things that we have tried to cover in group audit. But of course, you need to modify it when the ISR has been adopted. Your responsibility will increase accordingly. Okay. So we have actually tried to come out with some in-between situation which would incorporate the older aspects, all the requirements when you are using the work of another auditor, and also when you are faced with the audit of a group. Okay. Chapter 12 is on staff planning and time allocation. This is ours. We need to plan time allocation, how much, what work, what area, what time, as I said, to make it more effective and efficient. How much time will be spent by juniors, semi-seniors, seniors. I mean, in a situation where you have so. When you don't have it, form is small, then you can say just your assistant and between you, what will be the time allocation of certain work. Chapter 13 is on points brought forward from previous year. Now this is very important. This covers, what was the problems last year, how to deal this year, what adjustments that were made last year, what were the development that we need to watch. For example, in a situation of a contingency, we need to watch what finally happened this year. Okay. So these are the points that we normally put in our points forward from previous year. We have given a format that you can, of course, as I said, modify according to your requirement, and you can add and subtract the information that you need, or you may not, that may not be relevant to your audit. Part 3, now we dealt with part 1, pre-engagement, planning, and now execution. Execution, if you see, what is the foremost thing, chapter 14 is on means of selecting items for testing. So the first thing in execution is what to do, what items to test. Okay. Now this decision, of course, would be responsive to what? As I said, we cannot read the ISRs in isolation. We have to relate all the ISRs. This will be result of ISR 315, understanding the entity and assessing the risk. ISR 330, responses to those risks, what responses need to be, those assessed risks. And based on that, we decide our substantive procedures or the work of our audit. And is also dependent on the nature and size of the entity being audited. What could be the decision? Let us see. The decision could be selecting all items, 100% examination. You may come to the conclusion to examine 100% item, if practically possible, of course. Selecting specific items, and finally audit sampling. So you could do either of three. Okay. ISA 530 audit sampling. Now this is also a scarecrow for us, small and medium practices. What is a sampling? Okay. It's a karna kaise hai? Now, ISA 530, I conducted a workshop. Those who attended my workshop on audit sampling, we already discussed over that ISA 530 is the only ISA which is mandatory if you decide to go for audit sampling. Okay? If you are not doing audit sampling, throw away this ISA. I am not saying this. ISA 500. Okay? So if you go through ISA 500 and ISA 530 read together, it says that ISA 530 only applies when we decide to use audit sampling.